What are landing pages, also known as silo pages? Well, Bruce Clay of Bruce Clay Incorporated once had a conversation with me explaining his take on landing pages, and what he did is he painted a very interesting picture of being out in the middle of America on the plains somewhere and driving down a country road, and upon the horizon you saw these 5 or 6 tall things sticking up on the horizon, and as you got closer and closer, these things turned out to be grain silos. So a very visual representation of these silos on the landscape. Well, landing pages, also known as silo pages, in the Bruce Clay classes and workshops and on his website, got their start from banner ads, meaning when a person clicks on a banner ad, you land on a page, a specific page. Now, having said that, I want to talk here in this video about landing pages, and we're going to leave the Santa Monica Carousel website for part of this video so I can explain them from other perspectives. So we're pretty much done with this page for the most part. Of course, we do have a whole section on link building coming up, and of course, site submission and more. There's always tweaking to sites as you go along. But let's talk about some of these sections of this site which are not live. And just so you know, on the live site, the home button here will be live with a hotspot, about, and contact. But for this training tutorial, I have no plans at this time to make stories and memories and gallery live. But let's just pretend and play here for a moment and kind of create a story around these links or these hotspots, if you will. I just want to stress that even though we did this home page, you always want to think about other pages site-wide that you can land on. And right here is a good example. For instance, I could create a completely different web page called Santa Monica Carousel or Merry-Go-Round Pier Stories. And the moment I create that file over here in Dreamweaver, I would start by putting some of those keywords, of course, in the file name, as we've learned several times now. But the moment that page is, in fact, created, I would have distinctly different keywords up here in my page title. And using the word stories would be one of the top priorities for the page title. And it goes on and on. That word would then show up in the meta tags and the keywords. And of course, I would sprinkle it throughout my body text and H tags, heading tags, and alt tags, and it goes on and on and on. The point is, if somebody like Julie does in fact type in Santa Monica Carousel Stories or Merry-Go-Round Stories, I have a very good possibility of ranking very, very, very high in the SERPs. So think of that as yet another way of driving traffic to your site through optimizing for the word stories in regards to this site. And of course, memory is the same thing. These are pretty close together, but this one's not. When it comes to gallery, I would think that this part of the site would be an area where I would have photographs of the pier. So I would go into this part of the gallery, and the file name most likely over here would probably be Santa Monica Carousel or Santa Monica Pier Merry-Go-Round photos or photographs or images or something in the file name. And again, not to be overly redundant, but to sprinkle that site-wide through meta tags and more. The beauty of this is this site could generate traffic whenever anyone is using Google, Yahoo, MSN, or any other search engine image searches. And they would go there and see some terrific photos of the pier. And again, they'd click on that and they would come to my site. Bottom line is, there's multiple ways to drive traffic to a site by thinking about silos or landing pages, having your searcher land on different aspects of your site. Now, having said that, I want to jump over to a little background. You're now going to get a little insider information here about how some of this stuff actually works. And for instance, what I'm doing right here is just showing you what I did for a particular client, which is to help them rank high. And this was for a hypnotherapist in Los Angeles. And the point is, in Google search, anytime that someone searches for quit smoking Los Angeles or weight loss or different kinds of addictions or looking for a hypnotist or hypnotherapist or anxiety, there's a lot of anxiety in Los Angeles, they will land on any of these pages right here. I'm using Visio, or actually Excel for this one, but you get the idea. So these are my silo examples here that I would show a client and say, hey, let's optimize your site for the different services you provide through hypnotherapy. And this is a very successful technique. Instead of driving traffic simply to a homepage and diluting the homepage with all these other words over here and sticking everything on the homepage like the kitchen sink approach, it just doesn't work. So you want to divvy up the site, divvy it up into different silo landing pages for specific and highly targeted keywords. Now, while you're doing that, let's take a look at another example of something I do. And again, you're seeing sort of some behind-the-scenes SEO that I do, but everybody does it differently. And what I've done is I've changed the name here to Protect the Innocent, one of my clients. And what we have here is, for instance, Mar Vista Health Services, and they're a travel nurse company. What I do is I use Excel to find the hottest keywords for the client, and I put them over here under, for instance, this is the Yahoo term selector tool numbers here. And any of them that really apply to the client, I'll highlight here in green like that, so they stand out. And it's an extensive list. As you can see, I definitely have my keyword research cut out for me when I work for clients. And I take this very seriously. And what I do is I try to, again, like we learned in the very beginning of these videos, get inside the mind of the searcher. And I try to think, well, if someone were to type in something like a nursing job agency, is that a broad search? Well, not really. It's more of a targeted search. And who might be typing that in? Well, it could be a nurse in search of a job, but it also, for this particular client, could be a hospital who's looking for a nursing job agency to hire travel nurses. And it could be an employer search. So this would be a very, very good, fairly targeted search phrase that I would probably use for a client. If there's a hot phrase, something like this, on assignment healthcare staffing, I might even consider, actually I made a mistake, let's go up one. If my client's in California and they're in the travel nurse business, I might say, it might be a really good idea to consider a brand new web page to give travel nurses some information about the job in the state of California. Let's consider a new page. So I think you get the idea. Again, this is just my way of doing it. There's lots of different ways that people do this kind of stuff. And in an earlier movie, I actually showed this tab. I'm going to show it one more time before we go on to one last example. I always do what's called a top rank example. For instance, I've again changed the name here of the client, and this is a fictitious company, Mar Vista Health Services. But the idea here is I like to show a potential client what that page ranking might look like in, say, Yahoo or in Google. So if you look up here, it just simply says, example of organic search term query results. This is a demo only. If a user typed in travel nurse company, healthcare staffing company, and nurse jobs using Yahoo search, this is how you may show up. And so I put in, say, a page ranking of 3, and I show them that this is how they would show up in the SERPs if it was a perfect ideal world. They would have a ranking of 3. And for a different landing page, for instance, down here, I actually should have put employers here for you. Instead, I bolded healthcare. That's a mistake, but that's okay. They have a number 1 rank. Again, this is only a demo, but this really helps the client to visualize the end result of what all that meta tag keyword research is doing and creating silo pages, because the idea here is you are getting optimized silo pages or landing pages by working with me. Okay, now let's do one last quick look here for another client, and this worked out very well. For instance, a Middle Eastern web conferencing company. I optimized their site, and they have a very nice rank of 4 right there in Yahoo and similar in MSN, a little bit lower in Google. But notice that Tagora.com, and there's that bolded word right there in the folder. And what we have here is a web conferencing company, and this is a very, very targeted silo landing page site, if you will. So if we jump over to Tagora.com here, it's taken a moment to load, but there we go. That looks great. It's very, very clear what they do here. And remember, I said in an example of our Santa Monica Carousel site, it doesn't matter the format per se. For instance, here's a nice big Flash movie right here, front and center. And in here, none of this is searchable. Remember, we can right-click, and I can see that this is a Flash movie by right-clicking on it. We have things that say audio conferencing, video conferencing, web conferencing. However, again, none of that is searchable whatsoever. But on this site, we have very clear, distinct sections of this site: video conferencing, audio, and web conferencing. And throughout here, sprinkled here, we have our keywords very prominent at the very beginning of our text. We have nice alt tags, as you can see, repeating our keywords. And we have some links down here, for instance, conferencing services. This site is still pretty much under construction. But when we go over to these pages, look up here. This is the home page. We're leading with web conferencing, teleconferencing, video conferencing, etc. But the moment we jump over to, say, audio conferencing, we've switched. The keywords are different. We're now targeting teleconferencing, conference call, audio conferencing. And here's the famous header tag that I'm very, very fond of. Same with the alt tags. We are repeating audio, and conferencing, and all the conference call, all the keywords related to this landing page. Same with video. Very targeted, and people who are typing in video conferencing service in the Middle East or the Gulf countries land directly on these silo pages, landing pages, if you will. They don't necessarily land on the home page unless they're typing in maybe Tagora. All right, so I'm going to close out this movie with this last little summary, and that is, don't ever think of driving traffic just to the home page. While that's extremely important for certain keywords like a company name or certain brands or what have you, don't underestimate the importance of things like your about page, product page, the history of what is SEO, what is dog grooming, what is dog boarding, what is acupuncture. You want to drive traffic for other kinds of keyword phrases. By doing that, you'll see an incredible amount of traffic landing on different pages of your website.